Good evening. We'll jump right into it. Ask Me Anything with Dr. Twyman, where I try to help you reduce your risk of heart attack and stroke by answering your questions every Monday morning. Put the questions in my feed and answer them here live for you. So we'll jump into question number one. Question number one, what is a safe high number for triglycerides? Well, if the triglycerides are over 500, it increases the risk of pancreatitis, which is a very painful and potentially fatal issue with the organ that is responsible for insulin and other things that are required for your metabolism. Pancreatitis definitely can be fatal, often it's driven by alcohol or gallstone pancreatitis, but high triglycerides can cause pancreatitis as well. So if you're over 500 and it's not due to alcohol, generally need pretty aggressive treatment to get the triglycerides down. Most labs will say under 150 is considered normal, but optimal triglycerides are under 80. What are my thoughts on Urolithin A? And they love the AMAs. Great. Thank you for the feedback. Love doing these. I love educating people, helping them reduce the risk of cardiac events. Urolithin A, that is Mitopure from Twyman. A lot of interesting data to help with mitochondrial biogenesis, create new mitochondria, new engines. Works through the gut microbiome, creating Urolithin A. A lot of interesting data, particularly for athletes. So not a lot of downside. Only downside really is the cost of the supplement. You generally have to do 500 milligrams a day for many weeks to see any type of benefit. Question about hormones. What role do hormones play in vascular health? I don't know if there's a specific hormone you were speaking of, but hormones are signaling molecules to tell the body what's going on in the environment. So if it's sex hormones, if the estrogen levels are low, it does affect endothelial nitric oxide synthase and can affect nitric oxide. Arteries can get stiff. If it's testosterone, it can affect your muscle metabolism, your mood. Cortisol can raise blood sugar. It's damaging to the glycocalyx. So hormones definitely have a role in vascular health. So it's a test don't guess type of thing with hormones. Next question up. Have I seen the documentary, The Cholesterol Code? No, I have not. I've seen it in my feed pop up. I know the basics of it. It's about the lean mass hyperresponders and looking at plaque in the arteries with CT angiograms. This is what I do day in, day out with my patients at Apollo Cardiology. So I know what the basics that are probably going to show. It's an interesting hypothesis still. I'm doing a lot of the same type of kind of biohacking. We're looking at CT coronary angiogram images with various vendors that use AI plaque analysis and using advanced testing to figure out, what is driving that plaque. Cholesterol is just part of the plaque. You have to look at the health of the individual, their, glycocalyx, their endothelial function, how much oxidative stress and inflammation they have as well. Being metabolically healthy is one thing that reduces the risk of developing plaque in the arteries, but it is not the only thing. Still half the people who have heart attacks have normal cholesterol. So I think it's probably interesting. Haven't had a chance to watch it, and I know it's behind a paywall, so haven't yet to sit down to figure out if I'm willing to pay to play for that one, since I know probably what it's going to show, but I may sit down sometime and take a look at it. Question, how does a diet frequent in saturated fats like bacon, chocolate, heavy cream lead to a heart attack? Not necessarily. Not driven by saturated fat for most people. Some people, saturated fat can affect their LDL receptors and they will have increasing ApoB-containing particles with that. But fat in of itself is not atherogenic. You have to have something damaging the glycocalyx and inflammation that really drives that process. So I don't tell most people to avoid saturated fat just on principle. It's the other type of things that come along with saturated fat, the carbohydrates and other things like trans fats. All right, so those are the pre-submitted questions. I do see that there's some questions showing up in the comments here, so let's see if I can get them to pop up. Does neuropathy with feet and ankles indicate cardiovascular issues? Not necessarily. There's a lot of things that can cause neuropathy. Diabetic neuropathy definitely can have cardiovascular side effects. You can have low B vitamins, low folate can cause it. There can be certain gamma globulins that can cause it, so certain autoimmune conditions. So got to figure out what is the root cause of the neuropathy, but it doesn't automatically indicate that it's a cardiovascular issue. Well, we're waiting for any other comments. Welcome to those that are joining. Every Monday, 6 p.m. Central Time, I do these Ask Me Anythings. I stay around for as long as there's questions to be responded to. I help people in my practice, Apollo Cardiology. For right now, 48 out of 50 states, people come to see us and get their vascular health assessed. They have 60,000 miles of blood vessels, and we're experts at assessing endothelial function, genetic testing to figure out why your lipids are abnormal, if that's a concern for you, and really telling you what is your risk of having a heart attack and stroke. I've been adding some new epigenetic testing. I did it on myself. I have a very low risk of a heart attack in the next year. Fortunately, I practice what I preach. But if you're interested in that type of testing, you can go to my website, drtwyman.com, and fill out an application. One of the members of my team will set up an onboarding call, make sure that we're right for you. And if so, we'll be happy to take care of you in St. Louis. Another question came up. Is too much sugar more dangerous than too much fat? I don't like the either or type of questions. And also, people have been following me for long enough. I know that I will answer questions about nutrition, but it's usually based off of the goals that the individual in front of me is discussing. And if there's certain genetic predispositions, then yes, I'll tell them what to really kind of watch out for. But sugar and fat aren't necessarily bad for you. They're just different sources of electrons. Think about your body as an mitochondrial factory that needs to make energy from the foodstuffs that you eat and the light that enters your body. We run on electrons through our mitochondria. You get electrons from grounding outside. You get electrons when light, particularly the infrared spectrum of light and UV light, hits your surfaces. The water in your body charge separates into structured water, negative and positive. And then when you eat foods, carbohydrates have high energy electrons. Fats have more dense electrons. Your mitochondria don't care where those electrons necessarily came from. The electrons run through the electron transport chain, and the body makes ATP, carbon dioxide, water, and heat. So that's why I don't say that there's a good food or bad food. It's just you're putting electrons in through your mitochondria. And somebody says they're testing low in nitric oxide when they're using the test strips at home. Roger that. It's a checkpoint. Some people, it really matters if you had normal ones and see it low. That is more useful than they're always low. Some people have disrupted oral microbiome. Some people just really are, the carnivore. They're not eating green leafy vegetables and they're not getting nitrates into their diet. So there's test strips that only give one color, and there's test strips that have two. You can then use the ones that have two to see, is it a problem if there's enough nitrates coming in? And then the bottom part of it looks at, do you have the right bacteria in your saliva to be able to make that reaction happen? So don't fret. If you have access to, just checking your blood pressure at home, if your blood pressure is normal, a little bit less likely you're going to have major issues with your nitric oxide availability. But there's testing you can do that looks at pulse rate velocity, the rings, they can give you an idea. Some of the wearables that are in the risk give you an idea of pulse rate velocity or stiffness of the arteries. If the arteries are stiff, oftentimes there's low nitric oxide. All right. I think that's the end of the questions that have been submitted today. Appreciate your guys' time and attention as always. I'll be back Monday, 6 p.m. Central Time to answer your questions. Hope you guys have a great 4th of July. Get some sunshine, eat some barbecue if that's your thing, and we'll see you next Monday.